And now, friends, on this holy day, let us gather in peace and unity as one before the grace and grandeur of life, as children before its great and loving mystery. In this hour, may we know anew the holy joy of human lives growing together, so that this hour will imbue all those to come with that same gift. Come, let us worship together.
I am a single cell in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind. I am a single cell. My needs are individual, but they are not unique. I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of our actions, thoughts, and feelings. I will work for human unity and human peace, for a moral order in harmony with the order of the universe. Together we share the quest for a society of the whole, equal to our needs, a society in which we need not live beneath our moral capacity, and in which justice has a life of its own. We are single cells in a body of 4 billion cells. The body is humankind.
So take a moment to just kind of sit back and just take a deep breath in and let it out. We are grateful to be here together on this beautiful Sunday as we continue to make our way through these troubled times. We are grateful to be here together in this place, a place that works to recognize the inherent worth and dignity and humanity of each and every individual. And when we fall short of that goal, we make amends and work toward making that reality come to fruition. Knowing that our world is not perfect and that there is still a lot of work to do in building a better world, we keep in our hearts and prayers those who are othered, whatever the reason may be, even if those reasons are because we disagree politically. May we continue, and may we and countless others continue to work toward recognizing the humanity in everyone, regardless of race, sexuality, gender identity, religion, ethnic origin, political affiliation, or any other label that can seek to separate instead of unite. For it is our shared humanity that we can help build a better world. May we be a source that helps build that better community for everyone. Blessed be, and amen.
Sometimes my friends and I think up jokes, comedy skits, or ideas for memes to share with one another. A few months ago, I came up with an idea for a commercial. The scene opens up on a campsite in the woods at night, and next to a blazing campfire sits a rugged man in a plaid shirt and a red baseball cap. You know the one. The fire crackles as he sits alone quietly, and then we see him calmly lift a soda can to his mouth. The second he takes a sip, a gust of wind blows his cap off, and an exuberant electric guitar riff plays. The man seems to come to life. He looks dazzled, refreshed, and energized by what he has just tasted. He holds out the can to see what has just crossed his lips, and then cut to a close-up to the can in his hand. It features the smiling face of Barack Obama. And at this point, a commercial voiceover says, hate never tasted this good. Then you pan out to the man looking down at the can in his hand with a broad smile on his face. That smile then melts into an evil, rageful grimace as he dramatically crushes the can in his fist and flings it into the campfire. The fire flares up, and a closing voice says, Haterade, available at a rally near you. And scene. A confession. As you can see, I'm not above taking cheap shots. I have a figurative pile of my own haterade that I consume, sadly, often with pleasure. The hostility I feel for my opponents tastes pretty good. The righteousness feels exhilarating. The schadenfreude is delicious. The outrage is intoxicating. I am not the virtuous well of limitless compassion that I aspire to be. Another confession. I gulped down each of the January 6th hearings with absolute delight. If I could have consumed them in a movie theater with popcorn, I would have considered it a perfect evening. I can imagine myself in ancient Rome cheering on Liz Cheney as she lunges at the former president with a mace in her hand while his followers tear their shirts and gnash their teeth. A confession. Throughout the day, especially when I'm bored or need to procrastinate, I compulsively scroll through my digital news feed or listen to news radio. News soothes me as if it were a glass of wine. I drink up the political battles and the partisan condemnation. All will be well. My guys will triumph. And when it appears that they won't, I reach for more news so that anxiety might be soothed. A confession. I am no saint. My heart hardens. It needs regular massaging. My mind gets clouded. It needs regular positive messaging. My soul disconnects. It needs regular maintenance to act sanely and constructively in this crazy world. I'm just an average human being with the same weaknesses as everyone else. The fourth commandment says to keep the Sabbath. Acknowledging that I am not immune to human temptations and that human weakness is a part of me too, is one reason that I come regularly to this congregation. It is why I have committed myself to the strengthening and widening of this community. Thank you.
The story for all ages was about crickets. The sermon is about monkeys. There once was a large group of monkeys playing together at night. One of them went over to the well to get a drink of water, but when they looked down into the well, they were shocked to see the moon down there in the water. Clearly, the moon had fallen out of the sky and into the well and was shining brightly for now, but would certainly extinguish if left in the water for too long, and then there would be no moon. And then how would the monkeys play at night? One had an idea. We'll make a monkey chain that reaches to the bottom of the well. We'll all hold each other's legs until one of us can reach the bottom, grab the moon, pull it up, we'll throw it right back up there in the sky among the stars where it belongs. And we have to move quickly so that the moon doesn't go out. So let's get to work. And so one monkey grabbed a branch attached to a tree for support. And then the monkeys started making their chain down to the bottom of the well. But when the last monkey was almost at the bottom, about to reach into the water to grab the moon, the branch broke and many monkeys went tumbling into the well. And as they did, with the water disturbed, the moon fragmented and broke into 1,000 pieces that seemed to randomly appear and disappear. None of them could be grabbed, only glimpsed before the ripples made them covered them all up. The monkeys could see that the moon was there, but they could not grab it. And to top things off, they were now stuck at the bottom of a well. Meanwhile, on the ground above, one monkey watched the moon appear and disappear in the water below, but realized that the light above didn't change. And that monkey looked up and saw a big bright moon and realized their mistake. This story is attributed to the Buddha and claimed to have been shared originally in South Asia in the 5th or 6th century BCE. The commentary is usually about wisdom, about the monkeys creating a foolish predicament by rushing around and panicking instead of taking a breath and thinking things through for a second, maybe having a conversation about what is going on before trying to fix something that they don't really understand, maybe asking a wise one or a teacher for advice first. Wisdom in the Buddhist tradition, and more broadly, is seldom, if ever, best attained through rushing around and just doing whatever comes to mind. Wisdom has a pace to it, and it's a slower one, a patient one, a pace that allows for the ambiguous to become clearer as the water stills and the breath slows and light shines, and a pace that knows that mindless action in the midst of chaos usually just creates more chaos, makes the problem bigger. The story is traditionally about wisdom, but to me, this day, it also reminds me of politics and the media and the ways in which we are encouraged to go low and even lower in search of shiny things. Those shiny things are often, for those on the left, outrageous portrayals of those on the right, and for those on the right, outrageous portrayals of those on the left. If you've never seen a YouTube reaction video, well, good for you, don't start. There are some that are just silly. Someone videos themselves making a cooking video or exercise video and someone else watches it and offers funny commentary. This can be kind of fun, fine. But there is an entire industry organized around those of one political persuasion reacting to videos made by those of other political persuasions. And the entire point is mockery through misrepresentation and straw manning. It's all very mean, sometimes cruel, extreme, and for some, lucrative. If op-eds in the paper or mainstream online news are edited to be fairly accurate, even in the opinion industry, these and other online storms are thoroughly unchecked, incendiary on both sides, at times flat out wrong. But they do throw shiny things into pits, and many jump right down there to grab them. This happens on television too, of course, and in print media. The other side is portrayed in ways that induce outrage. We live in an age of outrage, and so we grab and fall, grab and fall, grab and fall, all for the profit of someone else. If nothing else, it's good to know that collective outrage engaged in the media, clicked online and posted on platforms, enriches various barons. It's orchestrated to do that. Though the age of outrage has impoverished our nation's soul, it has enriched those who continue to count on our clicks, posts, and views to drive up their stock. And they've become really good at polarizing the common goods, so much so that even things like concern for the earth, public health, and the safety of public officers are now generally polarized issues that draw people into narrow and suffocating camps and sides. Ezra Klein, in his book, Why We're Polarized, describes polarization as a step beyond simple political identity, process, or preference. We're all political actors. Many of us are partisan oriented, so much so that some of us have only ever voted for members of one party or another and only ever plan to. That's not really a problem, or if it is, it's not a new one, and generally doesn't seem to destroy the sense of commonality that is essential for congregation, community, or country. Political engagement, activism, strenuous and spirited debate that does not necessarily lead to agreement, but clarity around disagreement, the value of dissent, the importance of discussion, compromise, and moderation, all by political actors, often of a party identity and ethos. This is the stuff of healthy democracy. And while our founders had hoped that political parties would not be a thing in America, that was a naive wish. It became really clear, really early, that they would be. And so even if it is a problem, it's one we have to deal with, and we're not unique in that. Parties, movements, alignments, dissidents, even if disallowed by those in power, are everywhere. But none of that necessarily leads to polarization, which is the state of things today. Polarization is less about engaging politics proactively about issues and ideas that one supports. It's more about engaging politics by trying to destroy whoever you imagine to be your opponent. It's reactive in the sense that a polarized political field is one in which the players just wait for the other side to propose something and then berate them for the ambition and try to kill the plan, whatever that plan may be. Partisan politics is about winning your issues in the ballot box and then in government, usually through vision in campaigning and then compromise in legislating. Polarized politics is about trying to stop the other side from doing anything at all by fostering outraged and ill-informed opposition. Automatic dissent becomes a virtue in this realm. If one side wants it, the other side doesn't. And the shiny, awful other at the bottom of the well is spotlighted again and again, and we sink again and again. And the field of others only grows in a polarized field such that it's not just left and right, but soon becomes left within left and right within right. And some elections turn solely on how unified the sides can remain, at least for one vote on one day a year. The more unified side sometimes wins that vote, and if that happens in comparatively a few important swing races, that side wins power and shapes things for all to come. This polarized industry and the barons it enriches depends on us viewing the other as awful, ignorant, borderline less than human, sometimes explicitly less than human. It demands not so much that we side with them, but side against the other, for they know that monetizing our distrust, anger, and judgment is lucrative, and they will never place before us they will always place before us the shiny token of hating the stranger, our neighbor, and our family member. They will sell it as long as we click on it, as long as we post it, as long as we view it, as long as we buy it. They'll sell it as long as we let that sentiment be in our hearts. The writer, naturalist, and advocate for the land, Wendell Berry, writes about this polarized world in a different way. In his recent book, The Need to Be Whole, Patriotism and the History of Prejudice, he writes, I recommend second thoughts about the possibility of a side of love, but current political rhetoric tends towards such an absolute division. The side of hate is composed of avowed racists. Avowed racists have espoused an absolute, unaccepting prejudice against a kind of people, and so they may be called the side of hate rightly enough. That haters' hate is morally as straightforward and uncomplicated as it can be, but they themselves are perceived by the side of love as a kind of people, and the side of love, as perceived by the side of hate, is a kind of people also, another kind. And so we have a confrontation of two opposite kinds of people, lovers and haters, each side as absolute in its identity as it can make itself. And they do not know each other. They cannot imagine each other. For the haters, this situation is wonderfully simple and entirely acceptable. They don't need even a notion of consequence. They are there to oppose, that is all. The lovers, on the contrary, have everything at stake, and the situation is clouded by moral danger. Berry writes that these two sides cannot even imagine each other, encouraging us to think perhaps about ways that we might reimagine one another. If we have constructed the other in a particular image, perhaps fueled by their words and deeds, perhaps fueled by our comfort with having some other to oppose, perhaps both, then how can we reimagine the other to emphasize a sense of commonality, of a shared destiny, of a shared core divinity? For our faith emphasizes that commonality, those things that we share, a common spark of divine, a sense of oneness in what brought us to life and keeps us living, the cleansing of forgiveness and the newness of reconciliation, the belief that none of us are as bad as our worst moments, the faith that we are more connected than alone, more of the many than of ourselves, more interdependent than independent, the common desire for our children to live better lives than ours, and the ambition to make that the case through our sacrifices and the meeting of our obligations today. We are more common than not in our concern for tomorrow and in the practicalities of our lives right now, for we all worry about the safety of our kids and grandkids, the health of loved ones, and the opportunities before those with less. We are more common than not in our goodness, in our willingness to help a stranger with a flat, a neighbor with a move, or a family who has lost everything in a storm. We are more common than not in our basic human goodness, a tenet of our faith to be applied not only to those like us, but to everyone, everywhere, a goodness imagined as a divine gift, as grace, as something that can bring us together at some basic level of respect and appreciation, even though we may disagree passionately on so much. This commonality in our faith is rooted in the strongest kind of love, that which can bring even enemies together in a community made more beloved by their common goodness. It is the same love that our universalist forebears imagined to be so powerful that it would redeem every soul, even though huge categories of Western religion were structured around the exact opposite teaching. We believed love was that strong then, and we must believe it again today, that love is strong enough not only to redeem every soul, but to redeem our collective soul, that just as love can bring goodness, forgiveness, and virtue to light in one, it can bring those gifts to light in many. And practiced, it can lead us away from viewing the other as an object to oppose and help us reimagine the other as a being to engage, a being rooted like us in goodness and blessing, a being of love who loves, a being who has bad days and good and is structured in and by the same toxic system we are. Love, which is the heartbeat, the glowing coal, the design essence of our faith, can turn the tide of outrage and hatred toward the common good and respect. And in our faith, that love is without limits, without ends. It is for all and of all. It is the strongest, most creative, most redemptive thing in our hearts and among our hearts. Wendell Berry describes this love by writing, "I am not speaking here of a love that thrives only by feeding upon a commensurate hatred, but rather of the love, perhaps more fearful, that draws no boundaries around itself. A boundaryless love," he is writing, "in which we can hold everyone as we ourselves are held and as we are called to hold others." This doesn't look like false agreement or retreat from the political process. It doesn't look like acquiescence in the interest of harmony. It is not meek. It is active and strong political engagement from a theological center of love for all, even those we oppose. It means that we check our inner responses when they might dehumanize someone else. It means we avoid media that aims to denigrate and provoke outrage for profit. It means that we advocate with respect for each other's humanity and disagree with the assurance that we have more in common than not. Our theology and tradition and the world as it is all call us to political engagement in ways that serve the holy and serve the common good today and tomorrow. They call us to engagement in ways that are not only rooted in our faith, but that prophetically, pastorally, and joyfully share our good news, that all are of love, and that all are loved, with no exceptions, without limits. And long after we have won and lost this election and that one, and this issue and that one, the power of our faith, having blessed the lives of allies and opponents, and through them generations to come, will endure and grow. It will bless not a side, but a world, not a party, but a people. It will be the love described by the Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Mel Hoover, who once said, "The journey is not over. I stand here today in the hope that you and we someday may not just stand on the side of love, but stand in the midst of love together." May we be a people of that love, that big one in which we live and grow and serve and sing. And may we imagine everyone else as in and of that love as well, that we may, in our engagement, activism, and politics, lift everyone, including ourselves, from the wells of mirage and deception and toward the holy light of oneness and truth. May it be so, and amen. For our benediction, go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of greater love and beauty and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always, and always with neighbor and stranger, by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.